This is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And this is
Season 6 of
Pero Let Me Tell You.
I would pay the money I don't have to see an Eartha Kitt, Bruno Toglioni interaction.
I mean, we would have to bring her back from Mahaya, but, you know, stranger things have happened.
If anybody could do it just to host Dancing with the Stars, it's Eartha Kitt.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 272 of Pero Let Me Tell You.
Yes.
How is everybody today?
I think everybody's doing well. It is it's the weekend, but more importantly, it is your birthday weekend.
It is my birthday weekend.
Yes.
It is my birthday weekend. Before we get to my birthday weekend, I just wanted to...
I just want to say, because you know everybody's going to be asking about the cake next week.
I don't. But before that, I want to finish up what we were talking before we started recording about Eartha Kitt. So for you listeners who don't know Eartha Kitt, look up Eartha Kitt. You know somebody.
Watch Emperor's New Groove.
You know something that she's been in.
Yeah.
I knew who she was, and insofar as that, like I recognized her name.
Right.
And I know that she was Catwoman, but I didn't know too much about Eartha Kitt.
Right.
And then when I watched The Emperor's New Groove, I'm like, okay, what is this hilariousness?
I mean, how are we missing out?
Crunk.
So
I never
long.
liked your spinach puffs. Never. Why do we even have that lever?
I love her.
I love my favorite thing she says in The Emperor's New Groove is like, ooh, I have a plan. I'm going to put him in a box and put him in another box and put him in another box. And then I'm going to mail it to myself. And when it arrives at the door, I'm going to smash it with a hammer.
But first,
to save on postage, I will poison him with this. Extract of llama. We could go on.
right.
The Emperor's New Groove.
The poison for Cusco. Right.
The Emperor's New Groove, people who, if you've watched that movie, you know.
Yes.
It's if you know, you
the
know.
beauty of it, yeah.
But if you haven't watched The Emperor's New Groove, like go out and watch it on Disney Plus or whatever.
You know the story of that movie, right?
Yeah, you told me that. It started off, it was going to be something about like the Aztec Empire.
That movie was supposed to be like this big, sweeping, beautiful, like Aztec drama, no sé qué cosa. Sting was brought in. You know how like the end song is Sting?
Uh-huh.
He had written the music. There's an entire documentary of this because part of the agreement was that his wife was going to do a documentary following the process of him writing for the animation and how it's made. So there's a whole documentary, I think it's even on YouTube, that just shows how this thing just went off the rails.
To say it, no, it didn't go off the
wonderful.
rail. It went down the mountain into like a river.
Yes, and it was wonderful.
Because it's funny because The Emperor's New Groove, it does not
Empire
feel
of
like,
the Sun, I think is what it was.
It doesn't feel like a Disney movie.
At all. It feels very like DreamWorks.
I remember when that movie came out, like it didn't do well in the box office. I don't think so.
I mean,
I remember I didn't even really pay much attention to it. And then one day, I don't know if it was on TV or on cable, that I was like, wait, what? It's so funny. It just has so many good like one-liners. And I mean, it's about Eartha Kitt.
I mean, it really is at the end of the day. It's all about Eartha.
I love the part where she tries to go to Dan's house, John Goodman's house,
Pacha.
To his house, and he's like, "I'm his aunt," and his daughter's like, "You mean the great?" It's just great. People watch Emperor's New Groove.
Yes,
watch
watch
it.
it.
So yes, my birthday weekend is here.
Yes.
So
and you know what everybody's going to be asking.
As you listeners know, my birthday cake debacle every year is at this point in time, it's turned into like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because
it's become a bit without becoming a bit.
Yes, it's sort of like what I always tell people. You know, there's so many moments in life that it's 500 Days of Summer. You know, the part of the movie, if you've seen 500 Days of Summer, when Tom goes to the party and the screen splits into reality versus expectation.
Yes.
For so many years, I would send my parents like pictures and screenshots of the cakes that I wanted, and then what I ended up getting was completely different.
So different.
I was just telling Ish.
You just showed me.
I just showed him a picture. One of the best cake fails, but at the moment it was a cake fail, but now it's a win. It's like
it's given us a
its
story.
Greatness.
Yeah.
Was the year that for my birthday, and I have the picture and I showed Ish, my mom got me for my birthday a Christmas wreath cake. So it was like a bundt cake.
Yeah,
decorated like a wreath with like those little plastic light bulbs.
And it had like little like shimmer, like gold.
Yes, that she bought at Publix.
Yeah.
And what we can't figure out, my birthday's in October. How does she get this?
Yeah, because this wasn't even like ahora que tú dices que todo está adelantado.
Yeah.
No, this was way back.
This was like I was in my 20s.
Right.
So it was a few years ago.
Right. So this was back when Christmas didn't start until end of November.
Right. But even now that everything is early, you still don't see Christmas stuff. I mean, maybe like a Costco or something. Yeah. But at Publix, they don't have Christmas stuff.
Mucho menos que.
And also, I'm like at the middle of October, literally the 15th. So like it couldn't get more middle. So it's not like bueno. My birthday's like October 30th. Right, they're itching to take out the Christmas stuff, right?
No, not
and we don't understand how my mom got me. And I know that my mom didn't special order the cake from Publix because she doesn't know how to.
Especially back then. Because it was harder. You couldn't even just go online. You had to actually physically go and do the whole
my
process.
Mom's going to go online now to
No, but I'm saying, but I'm saying there was more steps that were necessary.
We're talking about my parents.
That's true.
My parents aren't going to go online.
That's
to order
true.
The cake.
Whatever. Your mother's favorite singer is Paris Hilton.
No, you gotta tell that story. We haven't had a good my parents story in a while.
That's true. Okay, so listen, this actually happened. I think it was last weekend. So we had a pop up at Shoujo's Dojo, which by the way we're doing a ticketed event there on October 24th. Go to their IG and buy your tickets.
And we're doing karage, which is Japanese fried chicken. It's some good stuff.
It's so good. And there's only 25 tickets. 10 as of this recording have already been sold. So yeah, you have your warning. So. I'm here. You had already gotten here, but you were upstairs. So I'm in the kitchen getting stuff ready, and your parents were here because they had picked up Tristan. And they're watching Rojo Vivo, one of those afternoon shows. And the day before had been the Latin Billboard Awards. So, of course, it was on Telemundo. The show was all talking about all the fashion and who was there.
Doing the recap.
The recap, your usual entertainment recap, right? Great. God knows why Paris Hilton was at the Latin Billboard Awards, but she was. So, of course, being Paris Hilton, the anchors who were covering the event obviously had to grab her to do a little like, oh, Paris, gracias por venir, and, type of thing. Without missing a beat, the minute Paris Hilton comes on screen, your mother, I swear to everything that I hold dear, because you weren't there, this is exactly how it happened. She, without missing a beat, just goes, ay, pero qué lindo canta ella. And I feel like I even looked at the screen again because I was like, maybe there was somebody standing behind Paris Hilton, right? Like maybe Adele was there too, right? Or something, or I don't know, anybody. And your father was like, pero si Paris Hilton no canta. And your mom is like, ay sí, pero ella tiene una voz lindísima. And your father then is like, pero si es que ella no hace nada. Ella no canta, ella no hace nada. And then they were kind of going back and forth. And at a certain point, I'm just standing back. I'm just like, let this play out and see where this goes, right? Because maybe she'll say like her favorite comedic actress is Nicole Richie. Yeah. Like, I don't know where this is going, right? Yeah. So after back and forth, I kind of pipe in a little bit. I'm like, ella sí, ella sacó un disco hace años atrás, tú sabes. And your dad's like, sí, pero ese disco no hizo nada. Ella no es cantante, no es nada. And I feel like your mother at that point kind of felt like she started questioning herself, right? Because she kind of took a step back and she's like, ay, pero entonces, ¿en quién yo estoy pensando? And
you know what would have been the best part of that story? If my mom did know that she was talking about Paris Hilton and she loves Stars Are Blind.
I think that she does, but I think your mother felt embarrassed that everybody was questioning her love of Paris Hilton's voice, and she was like a little embarrassed, and she's like, oh, who was I thinking of then? But I think your mother meant exactly what she said.
With my mom's trajectory of loving like Boney M and all these types of music, Stars Are Blind has a little bit of like dancehall reggae vibe. Like my mom totally loved Stars Are Blind.
I think she does.
Oh, no, for sure.
I think she does. And I think that she knew exactly who she was talking about and exactly what she was saying, but she felt a little embarrassed.
I'm glad that you witnessed those little things because even though you've known my parents for about 1,000 years now and you know everything about them, like it's always good when you witness it on your own.
Those things. Like,
you see it. Like...
It's been a week and I'm still laughing about it. Like I have got like there have been moments in the week where I've just stopped and been like, Nery loves Paris Hilton.
Yeah. And then my father being a rey de la farándula because my dad loves celebrity gossip. He loves it.
He really does.
I think my dad is still not over Nick and Jessica breaking up. My dad loves celebrity gossip. And then he'll be like, no, pero es que yo lo sé porque yo lo veo por televisión. I'm like, right, because you're watching the show about it.
I think, honestly, that your cousin Roger should use his connections to get your dad to fill in as the co-host on Go de la Flaca whenever Raúl de Molina's out.
It's not there.
Yeah. So it could be Roberto y Lele. Yeah.
That'd be kind of awesome. That'd be great. Can you imagine?
I think he'd do a great job.
My dad has like a third act career
Why not?
in like entertainment.
Listen, how old was Estelle Getty when she had her resurgence with the Golden Girls, right? And why not? Listen,
I love
justice for Roberto
I love that
Borges.
you looked at the TV and you were like, I don't know, maybe Adele was there.
I don't know, like, who else could have been behind her, right? Like, anyone. I don't know, Maria Guardia. Like, I don't like anybody but Paris Hilton.
But it was Paris Hilton.
It was Paris Hilton.
It was Paris Hilton. You know something I wanted to mention, because it's one of those things that, you know, when somebody mentions something or says something, then you start noticing it everywhere.
Yes, yeah, like when you buy a car and you start noticing.
Yes.
You're right.
You actually said something a couple of weeks ago, I think it was here on one of our episodes, that a very common term they're using now in English is saying, "Oh, she ate it."
Oh yeah, she ate it. She left no crumbs.
Yeah,
right.
he ate it.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
ate
Yeah.
it. She ate it.
We've been saying that for years,
and
kids.
I'm like, now I see it everywhere, and I'm like, I feel that as a Spanish-speaking Latin person, I deserve royalties.
Yeah, stop appropriating my culture.
yeah, literally,
Literally, because we've been saying that for years.
I mean,
like, oye, te la comiste.
that is so part of our language.
Yeah, and I feel it's very Caribbean.
It is.
Yeah, very Caribbean.
It is.
Spanish,
I don't hear other Latin
like
Americans
Central,
say
South
it.
American. I don't hear it very much. Yeah.
But like Caribbean folk, yeah, you're right. That's such a part of the way we speak. Te la comiste.
Yeah.
And te la comiste, you could say it both in negative and positive.
Yes.
Depending on the tone.
Right.
Oye, te la comiste. When you mess up,
Right.
Or like when you do a great thing, it's like te la
"Uy, te la comiste, mi hermano,
And now
wow."
people are like, "Oh, she ate it up," and I'm like, "Beyonce ate it up." I'm like, "Beyonce se la comió."
Yes, thank you. Let's say it correctly.
Beyonce se la comió, and yes, you're appropriating
My culture. My
Give
culture.
us royalties.
Where's my royalties? Where's
Give
my
us royalties.
Where's my petition?
But I see it everywhere now.
It is. It's everywhere now.
Everywhere. She ate it.
She ate it, you know. Oh yeah, they ate it. They left no crumbs.
Yeah. We should be like Caribbean folk, eating it since the 20th century. Since the 1900s.
Eating it since before Instagram.
Yeah, since the 1900s. Yeah. Since that so long ago. I actually wanted to give a little, my anecdotes.
Yes.
And this happened this week, but of course, like anything else that we do now, when something happens, I always think like, oh, show.
You have to save it.
So I was, in my daily morning 7-Eleven run.
Getting your pan de bono.
Yes. And this lady comes in, una americana. And she obviously didn't speak Spanish.
Okay.
And she was asking the guy at the counter something about her pump, about the gas pump.
Okay.
And she actually came in because I guess the credit card thing wasn't working.
Oh, so she had to go in.
So she or maybe she was having trouble with it, and she went in to say, "Oh, can I pay it here?" So it was a line of questioning that was related to what they do there.
Okay.
And the guy looked at her like she was speaking alien, and he even said, "Pero qué quiere ella?" to the other lady that worked there, who doesn't really speak English either.
Right.
So I interjected, and I'm like, no, ella quiere saber, ella está diciendo que no están dando la tarjeta de crédito, si lo puede pagar ahí. Which she proceeded to pay it there. And then she looked at me, the lady, and she's like, oh, thank you so much.
Right.
She was actually a very good about it.
Right.
She's like, I always tried to learn Espanol, but I wasn't able to.
God bless.
Right. But my whole thing was, and and something we always talk about on our show, which is the essence of our show, is the duality of living in Miami. That yes, it's the United States, but is it?
Yeah,
and
depends on the day.
the unofficial official language of Miami is Spanish, and everybody here speaks Spanish, and we always say that. But it was one of these situations where I was like, okay, I'm trying to look this from the outside in,
Right.
and taking my own bias away. Is that really right?
Well, if you weren't there.
Right. And she had a question. So that was like I was going to pose to you. Do you think that there's certain areas in certain places? And this was in the middle of like Kendall, which is not, it's not like, this was the middle of Little Havana.
Right.
But do you think that because we're a predominantly Spanish speaking city And, there's obviously immigration has everything to do with that. But because we're such a Spanish speaking city, that at this point in time, we've just gotten so comfortable, and that is the norm, that we've now left out people who don't speak Spanish. Because I thought about that furthermore. And remember a couple of episodes back, we talked about how second and third generation
are not necessarily as fluent.
Latin people are not, are you any more or less Latin if you don't speak Spanish?
Right.
So now you're not only talking about Americanos, you're talking about like second or third generation. It could be a son or a daughter of a Cuban or a Puerto Rican or Dominican or whatever, fluent. Colombian, fill in the blank, that doesn't speak Spanish and is not fluent. So do you think that it's gotten to that point that we're so comfortable with that now we are actually excluding people?
Well, I've said it before on this show, I think, which is, I understand everybody needs a job, everybody needs to make a living, but I think also that if you are working in certain service industries, you need to be able to have a basic ability to at least communicate in a situation like this. For instance, I don't think that you have to be able to explain to them, what all the ingredients are inside, the 7-Eleven donut, right? If in English or Spanish, for that matter. But I think that if you're working behind a counter and you are dealing with the public, you have to at least be able to communicate in the quote unquote language of the store. Let's not even say about the area you're in, the language of the store, because the fact of the matter is that predominantly everything in most gas stations, in most convenience stores, it is in English, right? So we're not even talking about a situation that they're at La Vaquita or Betsaye, where everything is,
it's a Cuban restaurant.
It's a Cuban restaurant. It's in 2 languages or so on, right? I think you have to be able to at least do that. Actually, hoy mismo, I went to McDonald's because I still have the little cards from the scavenger hunt. And when I walked right up to the register, the girl behind the register, I mean, if she was 22, she was a day, right? When I walked up to her, she immediately said, like, "Sí, ¿en qué lo puedo ayudar?" And it's like, I get it. I mean, I speak, I'm fluent, but you don't know that. Right. And then I proceeded to hand her the card, and she looked at me like if I had just handed her moon rocks.
Right.
But I do, and I don't know. I don't think it makes me less of a. I don't think it makes me a bad person. But I do feel that there should be an expectation of at least you need to be able to function in English if you're working somewhere that everything in that environment revolves around a particular language, right? If you work at an Asian market, right? If you work at a Korean market, you should probably learn some Korean, because chances are,
or at least the name of things and terms and how can I help you,
right? Because chances are you're going to have people coming in who may be Korean from Korea that haven't been here that long, right? So you're putting yourself in a situation where you need to be able to communicate with the customers.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to for me. You don't have to have a conversation with them, but you should at least be able to understand. Understand, I need gas, here's my credit card.
Because again, I looked at this situation and I tried to see it from the outside looking in a completely unbiased way. And look, I understand, my parents are immigrants. My parents came to this country in their 30s. My parents still barely speak English. Y pasan trabajo, 40 years later after being here. They try and they have
Your
basic communication.
Your parents are defiending.
But, and I remember when I was a kid, my mom cleaned houses for years because she couldn't get a better job. And I remember, she tried getting jobs at stores and at banks and whatever, and she couldn't because she didn't speak any English.
The language, yeah.
And then eventually she got a job at a bank through a hookup, through somebody that she knew there.
As we do.
Palanca.
Exactly.
I love that in Spanish, it's palanca, it's lever.
It's a lever, it's plank.
Yeah. But anyway, so, I understand the struggle. I personally, from my own family and upbringing, I understand the struggle. And, especially when you first get here, you just want to work. Right. And opportunity should be given to everybody and to everybody that comes. And they're hard workers, they're very hard workers. But I also see it from the point of view of like in this case, this woman came in with a very basic question about the product.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
And he was like, ¿qué? He was like, ¿qué quiere ella? Like, he was almost shocked.
It's not even that she came in asking for directions to somewhere else.
Right. She was almost shocked. And again, as you said, it's like, if I wouldn't have been there, like,
she'd still be there.
They probably would have waited for somebody else to come in.
Or she would have left.
You know, or she would have left, right? So I was a little bit like, I don't know about that one.
It's one of those situations where it doesn't make me upset, so to speak, but it does make me a little like, guys, we got to do better, you know?
So I have an assignment to our listeners.
Oh, okay. Oh, homework.
So listeners,
okay,
I have an assignment for you, and I'm talking to you.
Your mission, if you choose to accept it.
We've actually talked about this here on the show a couple of years ago.
I was like the Halloween
but
party.
I want to make it official again.
Okay.
Tell me how you say malanga, the plant, in English. Leave us comments below.
I don't know.
How do you say malanga in English?
I think it's...
we all know what a malanga is.
I've seen it referred to as a malanga plant.
A malanga?
Well,
I have never...
okay.
Is this equivalent to when people say yucca?
Well, I was going to say, it's some, where I've seen malanga plant, like the word plant in English next to the word malanga. So I have to assume that maybe it's just one of those things that people are like, oh, the malanga, you know?
Well, but malangas are very popular, you know.
Oh, they love it.
In the United States.
Oh, they love it. Oh, my God. Lesbians in Connecticut love a malanga plant.
Lesbians love malangas.
You throw that shit in macrame.
Malangas are everywhere. I'm not saying malangas. Malangas are everywhere in the U.S., right? I have yet to find somebody who can tell me how you say malanga in English.
Well, you know what?
If I went right now to a nursery, let's take this nursery in Connecticut.
Okay.
If I went to a plant nursery in Connecticut looking for a malanga, and I would
What do
go
I
up
say?
to the person, I'd be like, "Hi."
I want a blank.
I would have to look up a picture.
I want this.
I want this.
This malanga.
Because what I've found is like the real name,
the scientific
Magnimus.
no,
Planticus.
No.
You know,
no. That's not what we're trying to get at.
I want to know how you say malanga in Spanish, like an English deal. How do you say it?
I have faith in our listeners because one of our listeners, and I apologize in advance, I don't remember which one of you it was, did get back to us about the English translation from percudio.
Yes, I remember. What did they say?
Dingy. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds good enough for me.
It sounds good enough for impercudio.
Like it works. Right?
Impercudio is such a great word.
It is such a great word. But like dingy is like again, when you say dingy, I know what it means, right? Like I see it. I understand
My only thing with dingy is that it may very well be dingy, the equivalent of impercudio, but because impercudio has so many syllables.
Oh yeah.
It's just impercudio.
There's
Whereas
more.
Dingy's like, oh, that's dingy.
Dingy's like a little, like it doesn't have a little bit of color, but impercudio probably has like un poco de olor.
Yeah, because to me impercudio is dirty, it's muddy, it's wet, and like it's faded.
It's so many things.
It's impercudio.
It's impercudio.
Because impercudio, I think it's a notch above just sucio.
Oh, no. Sucio is fine.
I think that impercudio is sucio y embarrado junto. Don't you think so? Tú sabes cuando tú estás sucio, pero también te embarraste el pullover.
Oh my God.
Impercudio
is that
is sucio.
Is the culmination?
Impercudio es sucio y embarrado junto. Impercudido.
Change approved.
Sort of like the spelling bee.
Change
When
approved.
People go to like the spelling bee.
Done.
Use the word in a sentence.
Impercudio.
What is the definition? Impercudio. Sucio, embarrado y manchado.
Oh, we're throwing another one.
Impercudio.
You know what? Yeah, because you can be embarrado but not manchado.
Where's the word's origin? Havana.
Stupido.
Did I say anything wrong?
No, that's why.
Did I say anything that's inaccurate?
That's why I love you.
Impercudio. It's such a great word. That's why I like dingy. Again, it may be dingy, but dingy is like dingy.
Yeah. I feel like impercudio is not coming out with your average detergent.
Because look, if Karen is telling her kid off in English,
right?
Sean, your shirt is dingy. Your shirt is so dingy. It's not the same thing of saying, to quote Eddie Suarez. What's the girl's name? The character that he made up.
It starts with a Y, I'm sure.
You see lady. You see lady. Eso está impercudido. It's different.
It's not the same.
It's different.
It is. It hits different, as the kids say.
Yeah. So, listeners, that is your assignment.
That is the assignment.
Assignment, America. Do you remember where that was from?
That's from America's Funniest Home Videos.
It is?
Yes. Look at us bringing it full circle, because that's America's Funniest Home Videos, which was eventually hosted by Tom Bergeron, who was also the host of Dancing with the Stars. And then when he left America's Funniest Home Videos, it's Alfonso Ribeiro, who's the current host of Dancing with the Stars.
There you go. That was a great theme song, by the way. Stories from the friends next door.
Oh, yeah.
They never told. You might be a star tonight, so let that camera roll. You're red, white, and blue. The funny things you do. America, America, this is you. Dun, 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 dun. Do you remember America's Funniest People?
I do. It started off with Dave Coulier and Arlene Sorkin.
Who's Arlene Sorkin?
She passed away recently. She was on Days of Our Lives, but she was also the voice of Harley Quinn on the original Batman animated series. Then when she left, they brought in Tawny Kitaen with Dave Coulier. Then when they both left...
This is a lot.
Then when they both left, it was Daisy Fuentes with John... I forget his name. He was on VH1 a lot.
I don't always say this, but how do you remember this? Because, I mean, I remember all this stuff, too.
This is the crap that's in my head.
I remember a lot of odd stuff, but this is like very...
This is very niche.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why I remember all of this.
Wait, Daisy Fuentes was the host of America's Funniest People at one point?
By the time it ended, yeah. It was her and... I forget his name. His name was John something. I want to say like Fuselang or something like that, but... Fuselage? That's what... yes, but no.
Okay. How long did that show run?
Longer than it should have.
Because that show was about comedians.
That show was weird.
Yeah.
Because it was like America's Funniest Home Videos without the home videos.
Right.
Which I don't understand how it worked.
America's blank videos.
Yeah, like America's Funniest blank. I don't know. Like I don't understand how it worked, but it did. It went on for at least 5-6 years.
Yeah. So malanga anyway.
Yes, the malanga. So moving on to something a little more serious, because I think, you know, we've had the chuckles. We even talked about America's Funniest Home Videos, for Christ's sake. You know, it's been a rough couple days.
It has.
I think just globally, you know, for those of you who and if you haven't heard about this happening, I would love to know how, because sometimes I want to be shielded from the world's events. You know, Israel was the victim of a surprise attack from Hamas over, I think it'll be a week this Saturday.
Yeah, it was over the weekend.
It was over the weekend. At this point, I don't even know how many casualties there have been just from the initial bombing, you know, attack. It wasn't even a bombing; it was an attack, a coordinated attack, surprise attack. I mean, there was a music festival happening. There were families kidnapped. There were, you know, people killed. It was just absolutely, I mean, the definition of horrific, quite honestly. It's just it's interesting to me, and I don't even know if interesting is the right word, but you know, you think of that region as always being in turmoil to begin with, right? And then something like this happens and you realize, oh no, it was not as bad as it could be. You know what I mean? It could always be worse. It could always be worse. And again, this is a region that I don't think anybody has ever been like, they're at peace. You know, even when things were good, there was still a little tension and on Tinder hooks.
A lot of tension.
You know? Yeah, I'm being not facetious, but I'm being, you know, I'm trying to be a little less cataclysmic. I don't really have much to say, and I say this because I think I'm not arrogant enough to think that I know enough about something that's been going on for thousands of years to have a very defined stance, other than to say terrorism is terrorism. Innocent people are innocent people, and they are ultimately always the victims and the casualties of somebody else's agenda. And that in and of itself, I don't care where it's happening, is just always wrong. I mean, that I know it sounds very cliche,
but sometimes you need like very cliche moments in situations like this.
But I think it's that's the bottom line here is, you know, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, because, you know, Israel did this and Palestine did this and Hamas is not like because I know myself enough to know that I'm not smart enough to
well, I don't think it's
to have that nuanced conversation. I don't know enough about it. That's what I'm saying. By when I say I'm not smart enough, is that I don't have enough.
Okay, let me ask you this though. because I always like to bounce things off of you because, you know, you are an intelligent person. You're well read. What do you know about it, about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? And I'm asking you because I am a history buff and I read a lot.
Right.
I realize that I have a knowledge, not about this, about, you know, very specific things that maybe a layperson doesn't have. So I never like to judge myself against that. Not in a superior way. Just like
you just never like to make the assumption.
Just like there's a lot of things that I know very little of. Right.
Right.
What is your take? Like, not even so much about this conflict. What is your take or your knowledge on this region, on like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
So I actually, up until recently, I would even go so far as to say, like, I didn't even realize, and maybe I knew this, but I didn't realize how new of a country Israel in and of itself is. I think it was 1948. So, you know, even that, again, because you grow up knowing that this, as a region, right, the area, the Gaza Strip and all that.
The Levant.
I'm sorry?
Levant.
Right. Has just always been there, and it has always been considered holy land. And it's so you kind of, I think, sometimes take that knowledge and you just layer on, you know, the Israel of it all and just kind of assume it's always been there. You know, and
that there's always been conflict,
and that there's just always been conflict, and I don't think I'm incorrect in that assumption.
No, you're not.
Even before Israel, I'm sure there was lots of conflict in that area. What I have, and again, it's very limited, my knowledge, and I say this because I feel, especially now, everyone's a quote unquote expert, and I am smart enough to know that I should not trust
people's hot takes on it.
Yes. On either side, because I'm that intelligent. I'm smart enough to know that. Even when I see it on things like, you know, the news or the View or something like that, where obviously these are people who do have a little bit more of a briefing, and so they're speaking with a little bit more of a nuance than the average person probably would. You know, so I can't say that I know enough about Palestine one way or the other.
But even people that are, a lot of people that are you could say educated in this, have a bias one way or another.
I would say my bias is probably going to be towards Israel. And I you know, judge me if you wish. I think it's just also because from what I have read and what I have been told, and please do correct me if I am wrong, I feel like when we're looking at Israel versus Hamas, and I keep referring to Hamas because that is who attacked ultimately. It's
that
not,
is fair.
Okay. We are talking about, again, and this is not to say all of Israel is hunky-dory, but, you know, Israel is very progressive for a Middle Eastern country, specifically.
Especially on social issues.
That's what I meant, yeah, especially social issues. And we're dealing with, you know, a group that is not, you know, progressive. I mean, something as simple as like LGBT issues, Israel is pretty okay with it, you know, I mean, for all intents and purposes, to the point where I've even read, I believe that, you know, some like gay Palestinians have sought refuge in Israel because of the persecution. So I cannot say that I can side with Hamas because
I mean, they're a terrorist organization.
Right. But I'm saying I feel like just where they're coming from seems very, very anti my social beliefs. I don't know if that's the right phrasing for it. So I would have to say that my bias is a little bit more on the Israeli side, generally speaking.
So, okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about my knowledge or lack of knowledge about this situation. So, as you know, well, I mean, you know me personally, but maybe our listeners have picked up in 272 episodes. When I say that I love history, I love history. I mean, I'm the guy who I've contemplated going back to school to get a PhD in history for fun. Not that I have any aspirations to do anything with it.
What time do you have for that?
I don't know. For fun. Because I love history. And the thing about history, I mean, look, you could say a lot of things about it, that history was written by the, you know, people who won, the victors, which is true.
Sure.
And you know, knowing history is very important because history repeats itself, which is certainly the case here. But even when you know history and you read upon it, there are certain areas that you know you're never going to know enough of unless you write a dissertation about it, right? So I'll tell you a little bit. When we were in high school, I don't know if you remember this. Yitzhak Rabin, who was the prime minister of Israel, was assassinated when we were in high school.
This rings a bell.
And this was all over the news. This was a huge deal. Like, I remember my French teacher talking about that in French class. And I also remember that a couple of years before that, there was a very famous picture, I remember when it happened, of him and Yasser Arafat, who was the leader of Palestine, with Bill Clinton, that they had just signed the Oslo Accords. I didn't really know much what that was in my teenage self. I knew that there was
it was important,
there, but I didn't really know. Like, I was a teenager. I was like 14, 15 years old, right? I didn't know. So around the time that I started college, you know, I hate not knowing things, especially things that pique my interest. And that piqued my interest because I'm like, why are, like, when anything happens with Israel and Palestine, why is it such a big deal? I wanted to understand why. So ever since around the time I was like a senior in high school and started college, I started reading upon this. And I have a bunch of books in my library downstairs about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I've read a lot about this. And I'm not an expert by any means of the imagination on this, but I've read about this a lot. And when this happened earlier this week, there's a lot of people who have like kind of reached out to me like, oh, what do you think? Mm-hmm. What is your take on this and all that? And, you know, anytime I feel that ever since we've had the podcast and like there's been social media, every time there's un peo atravesado somewhere, people reach out to me like, what do you think about that?
I guarantee you no one has ever referred to the Israel-Palestinian thing as un peo atravesado
until
today.
But every time there's a problem,
right,
that, you know, shit hits the ceiling somewhere, people always like tell me like, oh, what is your take on things? Because I like to think that I'm a very rational person, right? I try not to have these opinions on bias. I try not to be emotional. I try to have a very rational view on things. And so that's something I take pride in addition to, you know, whenever I speak about a subject, it's a subject I have some knowledge on, right? I'm not like, whatever.
Oh, you seek to educate yourself.
I could tell you, as somebody who's read upon this issue, and I'm not an expert on it, as I said, but I have read something about it and have a very sort of, I would say, basic to above average knowledge on the historical aspect of this. When I see people giving their hot takes on what's going on with Israel and Palestine, it's just so infuriating because you don't know the history of really the trajectory really of this area of land. Because in order to really understand this, you have to go back. I mean, you could go back thousands of years because remember, these are two groups of people that believe that this is their holy land, right? And believe that God told them that this is where they should be, right? So aside from a religious angle, there's the political one. I mean, you would have to go back to the Ottoman Empire at the turn of the 20th century, the fall of the Ottoman Empire, which when the Ottoman Empire, I don't know how familiar you are or people are with that, the Ottoman Empire took up a lot of North Africa, Levant region of Europe. It was the Ottoman Empire, and it fell after World War I. And when it fell, England or the United Kingdom came in and with France and started like trying to figure out what to do with all this land and all these people of like different sects and different religion. And, you know, people have to know this history, you know. Before Israel was formed in 1948, that area was called Mandatory Palestine. Mandatory Palestine. Because in 1917, they signed the Balfour Accord, which gave impart the land to the Jews, but also the Palestinians were there. So this was an area that at one point was sort of a British colony.
Oh, I didn't know.
Right, before it was Israel. You have to know that to really have an opinion or an informed view on what's going on. And why is that important? Because it's important for perspective. It's important to understand the trajectory and the history that these people have in this land. And then what happened was that after World War II and, you know, the Holocaust and the displacement of so many Jews, through different machinations of the United Nations, Israel was born, if you will, in 1948. And it's a very, very complicated history that I feel complicated things don't have complicated answers.
No, they
and
do.
You have to.
They do have complicated answers.
I'm sorry, simple answer.
Yeah.
Complicated things don't have simple answers, and you have to see it from the point of view of like, if world leaders and different groups have tried to solve this throughout all this time and they haven't been able to, somebody's hot take on Instagram is not what's going to happen. In this particular issue, Israel was attacked by Hamas, and Hamas is a terrorist organization. I don't think Hamas represents Palestinians, right? I have friends that are Palestinians, and way before this, they have told me, and they've shown me videos of what they call the Israeli occupation, on how Israel treats them in the West Bank and in Gaza. And I see their hurt. I see where they're coming from. I also have friends that are Jewish and either have lived in Israel or have been to Israel and have told us that they live in constant threat of being attacked by Hamas. So I see that both people, where their fear and frustration comes from. So I, as somebody who I've never lived that, right. I'm not going to come in with a hot take and be like, well, but this person did this and this person did that. It's all bad. It's all bad. And here is really the point that I want to make across. You can be critical of the government of Israel. You could be extremely critical of how Israel handles the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and be critical and hold them accountable. You can be critical of the Palestinians. You can be critical of all that. Fair. What you can't turn a side eye to is the fact that Hamas, which is a terrorist group, I don't think that Hamas represents the average Palestinian, slaughtered all these people in Israel, people that were in a music festival. Yeah. Right? Babies. I think that you can say, hey, this is terrorism. This is disgusting. This is the worst of humanity, that they have done this, that they have massacred these people in a music festival, that allegedly they did this to babies. They slaughtered families. You could be critical of that. And you could also say, hey, and you know what? Maybe Israel shouldn't cut water and basic services to Gaza because it's an open air prison, as they say, right? Mm-hmm. You can be critical of all that. You have to be critical of all that, right? And that's the part of this that I find frustrating, that there's people that are saying like, well, but if you treat somebody this way, then they're going to fight back. But we've been attacked. We've been under threat all these years. You know, war is a terrible thing. And when you're a soldier or you're called to war, you know, it's terrible that, you know, soldiers, you know, and people that go to war and are in the military can be killed. But at the end of the day, there should be no excuse, no matter where you are in any conflict and on any side, for the slaughtering of innocent civilians. And that is my take on that. To me, anybody that slaughters innocent civilians, you're not on the right side of history. So
I don't care what your intentions were.
So what's my take on this? My take on this is that this is very complicated. My take on this is that there's, again, not only is there a religious aspect to this, this is a region that has been, you could even say, abused by the international community. Because again, before Israel was there, it was a British mandatory Palestine between 1917 to 1948. Guess what were the British doing there? Like why? Right? So and it goes before that too. Like I'm giving the more brief history because we could go back 1,000 years,
right,
or more, right? It's a very, very, very extremely complicated and multi-layered issue that does not have an easy solution. So to me, the moment that you start using humans as, especially civilians, as human shields, you start slaughtering them, you start murdering them, pawns in the name of your cause, to me, you lost me. And I know that that's not the answer a lot of people want. I think that in this, people want you to pick a side. And I'm on the side, I know this sounds very cliche, I'm on the side of humanity. Mm-hmm. And again, you could be critical of the Israeli government and you could be critical of the Palestinians. But what you can't turn a blind eye to what Hamas did. And that they're a terrorist organization, and they did what they did. And you know what? And you could be critical and say, yeah, and Israel shouldn't cut off the lifeline to Gaza because, there is I think 3.5 million to 4 million people in Gaza. It's one of the most dense areas in the world. Yeah. Right? So there's a lot of people there that have nothing to do with this. They're just regular Palestinians that are now suffering this, right? And again, you have leaders and governments and groups that do these terrible things to each other, and who's stuck in the middle? Regular people.
The innocent people, yeah.
Regular people. But to me, though, anybody, and this is my hard line on it, anybody who tells me or finds any type of justification in what Hamas did, I can't even begin to counter that. Because if you're okay with the slaughtering of human beings in that way,
then you have to be okay the other way.
Right. Because you know what? People say, well, but look at the French Revolution, and well, look at this revolution, and oh, look at this when people push back. Yes, but those were people that were either in the military or people that went out to either not violently, but to bring something down or to down with the king, right? Well, the French in the French Revolution that, there was two parties at odds, but these were people in a music festival. Right. I mean, these were people
at their militants
houses. The same way that in Palestine, these are people that live in their house that now don't have water, a hospital that doesn't have any. So to me, the moment that you start messing with innocent civilians, and the problem is that, and I'll say this too, all these hot takes on Instagram, on Twitter, on all these platforms where people are just basing their opinion on probably the most complicated and multi-layered problem in the world. Yeah. Based on things they've read online and based on other people's posts, you run a very, 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 you go to a very, very scary and dangerous place. Because the problem is that when you start reading that, you start taking sides insofar as that you pick your side and then you stop to see the humanity of the other side. And when you stop to see the humanity of the other side, now I'm not talking about the government, I'm not talking about a group, I'm talking about the other side. The moment that we stop seeing the humanity in the people that we don't agree with, that's when historically as human beings, we've gone down a very, very catastrophic and bad road.
Very ugly.
So that is my thing when I read comments online of people that I'm like, yeah, like you're saying something that an influencer or somebody else or somebody that you follow said, which I understand you want to get knowledge of it, but you can't have this, you can't have like a extreme or one polar end of the spectrum. You can't have an opinion that is that to one end of the spectrum based on what you read online. This is something that you have to read upon, that you have to understand, that you have to know people, because again, I go back to the people that I know. I have friends that are Israelis and Jews and friends that are Palestinian. And they both told me of the horrors that they lived through.
Right.
So who am I living in the United States? I've never experienced what they've experienced. Right. Who am I to disvalidate what they have gone through, their lived experience? Something that we are constantly saying here, when it relates to the Cuba matter. Oh, you can't tell me what my lived experience is. Well, I do that courtesy to other people. I'm not going to tell you what you should, what's going on when that's not my lived experience. But at the same time, you can also call, inhumane and terrible things out. Right? And say, hey, this may be my view on things, but somebody who murders innocent people and slaughters them, you're never right.
I don't care.
You're never right. So I don't know if that confused more people. I don't know if that's what you wanted to hear, No,
but it's interesting. We're talking obviously about how these world events people try to boil them down to hot takes and social media things. I just wanted to read something. I don't know if you saw this this post. It's been going around on Instagram, and I thought it was actually great. It says, I think the idea that social media gives everyone a voice has convinced us that we all should be talking about everything all the time. Not only is it unnatural for people to feel like they must constantly A, have an opinion on everything at all times, and B, perform that opinion publicly, it's also often the driving force behind the viral spread of partial or total misinformation. The amount of half-truths that circulate the internet every time people feel pressured to provide their less than fully formed view on the latest global crisis should concern us all. You are a human being. It is okay to sit in the silence between Instagram stories.
It is.
And I saw that and I thought that was so perfectly well put.
It is. And you know why? I'm glad you read that, because I'll go back to one of the first things that I said in terms of myself. I've read upon this. I have. I could show you the books downstairs that I've read. It's dozens of, probably 24 books that I've read about this in the last 20 years. Again, I'm no expert in this, but I think I have a little bit more of an understanding than a lot of people. And notice that I've been very restrained on this, which usually I'm very vocal about things, and I'll go and say it in social media, but I haven't, because I understand that this is bigger than any understanding that I have, and this has been going on for centuries.
Right.
So again, somebody's hot take over something they've read online, you can't base your opinion on such a complicated and multi-layered problem by a few things you read online.
Yeah,
you have to read, you have to educate yourself, you have to talk to people, talk to real people that
diverse people.
Yes, diverse people. Yeah, but that's it. Talk to people. Talk to different people. That's why I give the perspective. I have Israeli Jew friends and I have Palestinian friends, and I've heard, not now, for years, I've heard them tell me and send me video on things. And who am I to tell them, no, that's propaganda that you're feeding me? That's their lived experience. That's right. And I think about that too. How mad do we get? And we've talked about this in 272 episodes when people give hot takes about Cuba
and tell us we're wrong.
Yeah. How upset do we get? Yeah. And we come on here and we're like, that's not your lived experience. That's not what you've gone through. How dare you? You've never been there. You weren't born there. Your family's not from there. How dare you tell me? Right? So I'm not going to go give my hot take on somebody else's lived experience on one of the most complicated and multi-layered, oldest conflicts in humanity.
Yeah. Our situation's only been over 50 years. Theirs has been over 50,000.
Yeah. So, but again, you can be critical of each side, or if your take is on one side, be, again, hey, look, I don't agree with what the Israeli government has been doing to Gaza and the West Bank. I don't agree with the occupation. I think they've made it miserable for Palestinians. You can also say on the other side, Palestinians are threatening us. Hamas, they say that their goal is to eradicate Israel, that there's no two-state solution. You can say all those things, and
you're not wrong.
And it's your angle on it. But what you can't without a doubt turn a blind eye on is the inhumanity of it. You can't. So you have to call out an organization like Hamas that is a terrorist organization, right? A terrorist organization that slaughtered all these people. You have to call that out. Because if you don't, then there's not much of a discussion. You
don't really have an argument if it's okay for one but not the other.
You don't. So that's where I stand with that, which is not much, but
No, but I think it's important, and it's something. Obviously, we have our opinions on things and we have our stances, but I think it's important to also understand when things are beyond you, and try not to just take again. I think nowadays everybody gets very to build off of what I read. People get kind of pushed into like you have to take a side.
Yeah.
About everything. I mean, obviously we're talking about, Palestine, Israel right now, but about everything. You have to take a side. You have to take a side. Why haven't you publicly stated something? Blah, blah, and part of me understands that there's, I understand the argument of like silence is what is it? Silence is
golden.
No. Silence is being complicit. Like if you don't speak up against things, it's, it's acceptance and so on. I get it. But I also don't want people to just, to quote a line from Evita, or paraphrase a line from Evita, I don't want people to say, not say much, but say it loud. Mm-hmm. I'd rather that you reserve your voice for when you have something tangible to say, something genuine, not either a regurgitation of something that you saw.
But you know what?
Or something
I certainly do agree with the concept of silence is complicity.
But I think it's not a one size fits all.
Right. Exactly. It's not. And when you have a conflict that's been going on for so long and so many people have tried to solve it or come up with some type of resolution and everything has failed, you realize that this is complicated, and it's you just can't go in there and be like, well, but this is what it is, because it's not. And right. You're talking about a lot of people with different takes on this and different opinion. Mira, just the religious aspect that both believe that is their land.
Yeah.
That's enough to
good luck.
And as I said on my Instagram page the other day, I was like, and just like that overnight, everybody became an expert on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and geopolitics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you've mastered immigration law,
right,
it's the next logical step.
Right. I mean, I had to work 3 years for my law degree, but some people got it overnight on Google.
I mean, really, you just wasted your time.
I did,
and
a lot of money.
A lot of money, waste of time. You could have been out partying in your 20s.
But yeah, I honestly, and I like to be informed. I like to know what's going on. I just in general. But this is one of those situations where I read every day what's going on. I take time to know what are the updates. I don't need to see the pictures.
No, there's no need.
I don't need to see the pictures.
No
because
need.
You know what? It's not even the ignorance is bliss thing. It's not even
mental health. It's mental health.
It's mental health.
It's mental health. Don't do it to yourselves, listeners.
Yeah, sometimes you have to. It's not even about being selfish, but you have to look out for yourself, because you could very easily fall down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it really starts affecting you. And especially in this day and age that everybody has a phone and then there is footage everywhere, I've seen some footage just in accident that it looks like something from a horror movie, like from Saw.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I saw was, and again, allegedly, because we don't know the authenticity of these pictures. I think it was like a couple that was in a car that had been bombed out or burned out or something like that, and they were just like they were mummified. Mm-hmm. That was bad enough. I don't need to see beheadings.
Yeah, no.
I don't need, like you said, I don't need to see anything out of Saw.
It's really weird. Like I remember, humans are weird. We're weird people. Like I remember, which is awful. Like some years ago, the whole, thing in Iraq was happening, the whole war in Iraq and all that. Yeah. Remember that there were some American soldiers that were kidnapped and
yes, and the journalists
and were beheaded, and aired the beheadings, and people would see this online. Like, you could look it up online. It's like,
They would seek it out.
Why would you do? I know people who saw it. I'm like, why would you do that?
I don't need to.
Why would you want to see somebody's last moments in such a horrible way? That's somebody's son. That's somebody's dad. That's somebody's,
Brother, cousin,
cousin,
uncle,
friend,
nephew.
coworker, Why would you see that? Like, humans are weird people.
Yeah, I don't need to seek that out. I'm good.
So, I mean, look, this is not something that's going to have a resolution anytime soon. I mean, the most that you could do is be hopeful that at least there's a ceasefire. If you're somebody of faith, pray.
Yeah.
Because it, sort of like when the Ukrainian war started, no matter what your take on that is, just the fact that, and look, and they're suffering every single day in the world. I mean, there is.
They're suffering in a neighborhood here.
But just to know and see these images, it's terrible. It's terrible. It makes you feel, it's just so many things it makes you feel. It makes you feel like impotent, that like, what can you do? Is there something you could do? It makes you feel angry. It makes you feel sad. Like, it's such a mixture of feelings that you have. And then your heart goes out to these people. Yeah. Because these are people that were born into this. They didn't have a choice. They were born into this. This is their life. They have kids. They, half of the Gaza Strip are children. When they mean children, I don't know if it's 5-year-olds or under 18-year-olds, but it's young people. Yeah.
I do have a suggestion, because I was feeling a little overwhelmed earlier today, just sitting kind of thinking about just the world, and I just watched some Sesame Street.
Oh, Sesame Street.
I did.
Yeah.
I watched some Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Made me cry, actually, because it was like, not to oversimplify, but if we all lived on Sesame Street, you know what? Yeah. Everything would be much better.
Yeah. I just keep watching Que Pasa USA Roulette.
There's that too. But there's only 29 episodes? 39. So,
it's 39 episodes, but it feels like a lifetime.
If you exhaust them, then you can go to Sesame Street.
Yeah, it feels like a lifetime.
It does.
We were with the Peñas for years.
It's true. Well, we're still with them.
We still are. Years later.
So, I also wanted to bring up, something a little lighter. Anything could be lighter than this, but I think I don't pretend to know the solution for the Middle East, but I think that if Beyonce and Taylor Swift can get together,
that's my Last Cawy.
Then we'll.
Are we heading to our last?
Then let's head into the Last Cawy.
Oye, mi gente, us caribeños know we need to stay refreshed cuando hay tremendo calor. Bueno, Cawy Lemon-Lime soda's got you. Since 1948, this crisp and refreshing soda has been helping us beat the heat. Cawy Lemon-Lime is like the taste of sunshine sparkling off the clear blue waters of Cuba. Okay, bueno, for Miami. Y con zero aftertaste, the tart, sweet, bubbly Cawy Lemon-Lime is perfect for quenching your thirst. Así que what are you waiting for? Find the authentically Cuban taste of Cawy Lemon-Lime soda in stores now.
Okay,
and let's head to the Last Cawy.
So, well, it's
because I think we need to be refreshed after that conversation.
Last Cawy time.
Yeah, it's Last Cawy time. Yeah.
So we're thirsty.
We are. Listen, it's a heavy topic that we just went through.
So welcome to our Last Cawy of the desert.
Yes.
Although I will say, having a crisp, refreshing Cawy in the desert, it's pretty good.
Listen, it's refreshing.
Pero tiene que ser bien frío. You know that I'm like Andre 3000. I don't like cold. I want ice cold.
That's right.
Yeah, like
que el limón quita la sed. So this could actually really, really work in the desert.
No, that's why I'm telling you. We've said this before. It's not even that we're working with Cawy. It's really good. It's crisp and refreshing. It really, really is. Like, people, it's crisp and refreshing.
Yeah. Definition.
So I was gonna give my Last Cawy, and you jumped
the gun
to it. That's not a good word to use.
I
this
know.
To Beyonce and Taylor Swift, I was gonna give them 2 Cawys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, give them a 6-pack. 3
or they could take one and have 2 straws and make it an Instagram moment. But the reason I wanted to give it to them,
okay,
I wanted to give it to them more out of the significance than them individually, but I'll explain why. So yesterday or sometime this week, Taylor Swift released her Eras Tour concert film, and it had the premiere this week. And, she was on the red carpet. Obviously, it was a proper premiere. And Beyonce went, and, it made its rounds online. And, there's pictures of them in the red carpet. There's pictures of them inside the movie theater, like throwing popcorn.
That's cute, the inside,
right.
yeah.
So Beyonce went. And Beyonce just finished the Renaissance tour last week or 2 weeks ago. And Taylor Swift right now is in a hiatus on the Eras Tour, but it's going to start up by the end of the year again. The reason why I found this really significant is because, and we've talked about this on the show before, people just want to create shit and stir up shit nowadays. They just want to. And it's in part because of social media. And, they want to create rivalries and they want to create conflict where there shouldn't be any. And there has been the fandoms, the Beehive and the Swifties. That's where we are in this world. That, you identify as a Beehive or a Swiftie, right? That's just where we are. They have been stirring up shit among each other for years, right? Oh, but Taylor Swift won Grammy of the Year and she robbed Beyonce. No, she didn't rob Beyonce. The Academy did, right?
Let's put blame where it matters, right?
And,
right.
Taylor Swift can't sing and Beyonce's the queen mother, or Taylor Swift, writes all her music and Beyonce doesn't write shit. She has, 50 writers for one song. Like, all this stuff, right? This summer in particular, it really heated up because both of them were on two enormous, mammoth world tours that made, each of them made like half of the world's GDP, right? So it was ridiculous, like the constant competition. Oh, because Beyonce sold out in like 0.002 seconds, while Taylor Swift sold out in 0.0002 1 seconds. Like, who the hell cares? Like, this is the way that I saw it. Both of these women were touring the world this year. And they went to, like, dozens of cities. Millions of people saw them. People loved it. Like, you saw people in Beyonce's concerts. I went to Beyonce's concert a couple of weeks ago. Just so happy. And there was so much elation and joy there. Taylor Swift concerts. People were like jumping up and down, passing friendship bracelets, like all this stuff. These two women and these two tours brought people so much joy in a world that we are constantly saying doesn't have enough joy and happiness. There's so many things going wrong. There's so many things on the news. Why do people want to put them against each other? Why do people insist on creating conflict where there isn't conflict? The two women like each other. They're friends. They're supportive of each other. They respect each other. Beyonce, that doesn't do any red carpets, did the freaking red carpet for her. Right. Like, why do you insist on making an issue where there isn't an issue? So when I saw that, I was like, I'm going to give them the Last Cawy because people need to chill the fuck out. Like, here we were, a few minutes ago talking about mutiny and slaughter, in parts of the world, and you two freaking are arguing over how much your respective singer or favorite singer made in their world tour. Like, please, they're at home counting their billions. Like, no. So people, stop it. Stop it with the Taylor Swift, Beyonce, making shit where there isn't in it. They like each other. They're supportive of each other. Stop making conflict where there isn't any. Just stop it. Both of you, stop it. Both fandoms, stop it. So they get my Last Cawy.
All right.
Cawy.
Well, there you go. No, that's a great one. And I think, again, it's very important. They're showing that it's like social media doesn't matter, right? Because ultimately, it's like you said, it's fabricated.
Yeah,
and they know what's real.
And it's not like it's like Kardashian fabricated. Right? That they put something out there that is supposed to be real, but it's not. We all know it's real.
That the PR people did or whatever.
These two women really are supportive of each other. Don't forget that Beyonce, back in, 2009 when the whole Kanye West thing happened?
That's right.
that he took her award. Later that night, when Beyonce won a Video of the Year at the VMAs, she let Taylor Swift take the stage. Yeah. You know, and at that time, Taylor Swift was like, I don't want to say she was a nobody, but she was up and coming. Yeah,
especially in the pop world.
Yes, no, she wasn't even in the pop world because she won on country music award.
Right, but that's what I mean. Especially in the pop world,
she was unknown in the pop world.
Right.
At that time, and she was gracious enough to give her the stage to let her finish her speech. So these are women that have always supported each other. Why are we doing this? Like,
I have no clue. But well, my last Cawy, I'll keep it short and sweet. As we were talking earlier about Dancing with the Stars, I am thoroughly enjoying this season, and one of the reasons I'm enjoying it is because of one of the contestants, Lele Pons. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She is a social media influencer, but she's also a singer. Venezolana, but grew up here in Miami. And every week, this woman speaks with like the thickest Miami accent this side of Lucy Lopez. And it is just wonderful to see every week.
Has she said bro yet? Or
she
man?
Probably has.
Or literally?
So she probably has, but I haven't picked up on it because as a Miami boy, that's just how we speak.
Right.
But I just love the fact that, again, as we end Hispanic Heritage Month this week, you know, I mean, you want to talk about representation? Like, it is a genuine, you know, and she's fantastic on the show as well. But it's just like, she's so unapologetically Miami.
And as, I forgot his name, the linguist, Phil, that we had on the show a few months back to talk to us about Spanglish and the Miami accent. It is a real thing.
It is a real thing. So, you know, and she grew up in Miami, so you know she's going to love getting Last Cawy.
Yeah. Oh, she will.
She will absolutely love getting Last Cawy. So, Lele Pons, Last Cawy Lemon-Lime is for you. And, girl, throw in a couple more mans and bros. That's my only request.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Like, super excited.
Supposedly.
I'm super excited.
No, what's the other one? Irregardless.
Irregardless, I'm super excited that you're supposedly going to win the mirror ball.
Yeah. That's so gross. Man, you really should win that. You really should win that mirror ball.
Yeah.
Which now is called the Len Goodman.
Yes, it is. In honor.
Anyway, everybody, we hope you listened, laughed, and learned. As always, remember to grab your pastelito, your croqueta, and your cawy. And thank you for joining us so much this week. We hope everybody had a good time, and we'll all see you next week. And next week, I'll come with updates as to my birthday cake.
Yes, we're very excited about that. And also this week, Sunday, we're going to be at the New Era Collectibles with Bim Bam Pollo. And again, as I said earlier, do not forget to look for the tickets for the ticketed event at Shoujo's Dojo. It's a great sake place. We're going to be doing a tasting menu, only 25 seats available, so very limited.
Yeah, well, 15 available as of this recording.
As of this recording, yes, you're absolutely right. So, all right, kids.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.